In the news business, there used to be a term, slow news day. It was essentially when nothing significant happened, and so the evening news or the next morning's newspaper would peddle more trivial stories. Like a lifestyle article about some average Joe's unusual bar mitzvah, or about a heroic dog sniffing his way to find old treasure. I think journalists throughout the world are probably longing for those slow news days because it just seems like breaking news is the norm. Because breaking news does break every day, if not every moment. Wildfires, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tragedies, mass shootings, scandals, terrorism, virus outbreaks, viral videos, movements, demonstrations, conflicts, clashes, crashes, and of course, societies the world over, struggling with what to make of all the fake news that get in the way of believing what's really going on. But I'm not here to talk about fake news. I'm here to talk about real news. The real news that often gets overlooked because there aren't enough journalists on the ground to cover the local beats. The real news you choose not to read or watch because you want to tune out, because you choose not to care, because you don't want to know. Or the real news that gets forgotten because news stories emerge to capture our limited attention span and the news cycle has moved on. Seeing is believing, and our collective set of eyes are the news. Journalists who are able to bring us reportage about a new outbreak or a calamity that has caused widespread suffering. Journalists who go to the front lines of war. Journalists who seek out answers to questions we all have. And often journalists risk their own lives to get the truth out, to hold governments accountable, and to call attention to the great needs that are out there that are calling us to be engaged. But, as you know, the news business has shrunk. Let's be honest. How many of us didn't actually subscribe to a newspaper? If you're like me, you use up to 2 free articles and then probably don't read any more news when the subscription offer ends or pops up. While the media landscape has broadened, the news business has shrunk. And the business model of the news has had to adapt to what consumers are demanding, putting pressure on news organizations that have to compete for a limited but lucrative attention. This is why there's more clickbait, more Kardashians, more controversies, and what's left not covered are things that actually matter. This is why there's such a great need for citizen journalism. Keep in mind that it's citizen journalists who today capture significant events with their cell phones, like the miracle in Hudson, or those who are quarantined right now in Wuhan, China, and letting the world see what's truly going on in the midst of an outbreak. As a student journalist myself, I recently went to the Bahamas to cover the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. Without knowing what to expect, I grabbed the bag, grabbed some camera equipment, and went over to Grandmama Island. This is what I saw. I spent the day on the island. It was the best and worst day of my life. The unimaginable destruction, the enormity of the devastation, the yet untold stories of loss of life and selfless acts of heroism. I heard some horrific accounts by the extraordinary people who lived to tell them. This is what brought me to tears. But the hopefulness, the optimism, the joy and happiness in the eyes of people who just lost everything they've ever owned, but were still thankful. Thankful for what still remained and appreciative of any gesture or small act of kindness directed their way. That's what inspired me. Inspired me to make a change in this world and help give these people a chance to rebuild, to return to its former glory, and to help these victims at the worst time of their life. I was there exactly 2 months after the storm hit, and let me tell you something. There wasn't a single news truck or reporter to be found, yet the whole island still has not seen a speck of improvement. Living conditions have still not changed. They still don't have roofs over their heads, and they're still today living in tents where their homes once stood. My one small act of citizen journalism brought at least some short-term aid to one community on Grand Bahama Island. Could you imagine if we all continued to report on this about their ongoing need? The pain and suffering that is being experienced every moment by the residents on the island don't get to your eyes because it's being eclipsed by the business of the news that has decided what you need to know. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have this on you right now, a cell phone? If you're probably like me, you have it in your hand or pocket 16 hours a day. It's up to you and I to change the paradigm and make our phones tools to make an impact. That video you saw, that was shot entirely on my phone. We need to tell the story to show what's really important in the world. Not sensationalism, not every time a president tweets, not the latest gossip. This stuff shouldn't be going viral. What should be going viral are stories like the desperate need for ongoing aid in the Bahamas, or the continuing crisis in Puerto Rico and our own communities and all around the world. The home that burnt down and left the family with nothing, the child who's abducted or missing and still hasn't been located, or the puppies that need to find a new home. Today's news can't lead the headlines tomorrow because people decide to jokingly raid Area 51. Today's news should lead the headlines when the communities have been rebuilt and issues and crises resolved. It's up to you and me to make this happen. We all have the power to be responsible reporters, to be citizen journalists. But I have two pieces of advice when it comes to how to be responsible citizen journalists. Remember that being a good Samaritan and being a good citizen journalist doesn't mean foregoing being a good Samaritan. We've all seen these videos taken by onlookers of a fight or a brawl, and not one person intervened. Your job, most importantly, is to be a good citizen above all else. Don't prioritize capturing the moment at the expense of someone else getting hurt. The second piece of advice is that good citizen journalism is being objective and knowing that what you bear witness to and what you capture and report is just one piece of the story. It's not the whole picture. Trust that the truth will bear out if other pieces of the story are captured from other angles. I still do hope for a slow news day, but I don't foresee the world slowing down anytime soon. So, before more is forgotten, without us even batting an eye, it's important for us to click record and capture what's going on around us so that we can know what to believe when we see it.